This conference will now be recorded.
Hello everybody, and a warm welcome to today's session, in which we'll be introducing Academic Integrity, an interactive program from Epigeum. Over the course of the next 45 minutes or so, you'll be hearing from two Epigeum representatives. Firstly, my name is Jonathan Wakeford, and I'm a Senior Learning Consultant. I'm part of the implementation team responsible for ensuring that our partners have the support they need to successfully roll out and engage users with our programs. I'll kick off by telling you just a little bit about Epigeum before I hand over to Laura Dent, our Director of Publishing and Learning Design. Laura will firstly introduce you to Academic Integrity, our multidisciplinary program which facilitates a consistent and unified approach to academic integrity training. She'll then move on to talk about important aspects of the learning design of the program. You'll then hear from me again as I highlight some of the implementation options and ongoing support we provide, before wrapping up by explaining how you can get in touch with us should you be interested in learning more. So, I'll begin by telling you just a little bit more about Epigeum itself. We are a leading provider of online courseware, and were originally a spin-out company from Imperial College London. We were acquired by Oxford University Press in 2015 to be part of the university's mission of excellence in research, scholarship and education. We collaborate with a large range of universities, and our courses are used around the world by institutes such as the Russell Group in the UK and the Group of 8 universities in Australia. And on that point, here you can just see a few headline figures regarding our global reach and collaborations. So Epigeum programs support the core activities of universities and colleges in 4 key areas. Our online courses help higher education institutions in key skill areas in research, teaching and development, studying, and support and well-being. Evidence-based learning design, cutting-edge technology, and comprehensive subject knowledge ensure that each program delivers training of the highest quality. Our studying programs are designed to support institutions to deliver training that helps learners grow in independence and confidence. So I'll now hand over to Laura to talk more specifically about our Academic Integrity program. Laura?
Thanks, John. So we developed the Academic Integrity program in collaboration with a number of international higher education institutions under the guidance of Professor Tracy Brettag, who I'm sure will be familiar to a lot of you. She was one of the Times Higher Education's People of the Year in 2019, and we were, really thrilled to be working with her on the course. The idea really was to support institutions and help them rethink the way that they approach the theme of academic integrity, and to draw on Tracy's own research into the efficacy of holistic preventative training when tackling issues such as contract cheating. So we wanted this course to move beyond the coverage of a typical anti-plagiarism course, for example. So moving on to the development process for the programme. We worked with a range of universities and experts throughout the entire development process. And those universities and experts have had a significant input into the course planning and the development. So we hold a workshop at the start of this process where everyone comes together from across those universities to talk about the plans and the vision for the programme. And then we move on to the authoring and several peer review stages before moving through to our testing and publication stages. So it's a very collaborative process where we're drawing on experience and expertise from a range of different types of institutions who can all share best practices. So, as I mentioned, we worked with Tracy Brettag, who was our lead advisor for the collaboration. I'm sure Tracy is well known to most people watching this. She was the founding editor of the International Journal for Academic Integrity. She was also the editor-in-chief of the Handbook of Academic Integrity, which I have to say we referred to often throughout this development process. She's obviously a leading international expert in this field and very passionate about the area. So we were thrilled to work with Tracy throughout this. We also worked with a number of authors from a range of institutions that you can see listed there, from the UK, from Australia, from New Zealand, and they lent their academic expertise to the collaboration and were able to share their practical guidance and really help shape the modules. We also worked with a range of universities in what we call our development group. So again, there are quite a wide range of partners that we were collaborating with, and they were integral at every stage of our process, reviewing content and really talking about what the challenges are that they face at their institutions and what they need from an online training programme. So moving on, why did we first start looking into academic integrity? I think you might recognise some of these articles that are on the screen at the moment. So certainly in 2017, when we were first looking into this area in terms of online training, there was a rise of contract cheating sites that you could see being advertised on campus. There were increasing instances of academic misconduct that were getting picked up in the media and spoken about. For example, the number of academic misconduct cases at the UK's Russell Group universities increased by 40% in a 3-year period between 2014 and 2017. So it became clear that universities were looking to us and asking us about how we could support them in this area, and that's why we started looking into developing the programme with Tracy. So together with Tracy, we decided on some core principles that we wanted to inform and underpin the programme. Research suggests that academic integrity education is more effective when it occurs early, often, and it takes place just before or in conjunction with a specific assessment. So looking at that just-in-time approach. And that's what our online training programme can provide. We wanted it to be a wider and a more holistic approach. So not just looking at plagiarism and referencing, and not just reactive training when sort of a breach has taken place, but a wider perspective that looks at integrity and skills and looks at the responsibilities that both staff and students have here. So we know that AI is not a topic that's routinely covered in teacher training programs, and students also need to have an understanding of the consequences of academic misconduct. So we really wanted to look at education that can improve the teaching and learning experiences on both sides. and look at how we can support institutions in reducing opportunities to cheat through good curriculum design. And finally, we also wanted to explore the values and skills that would be beneficial for students in their future careers and in their broader lives. So this led us to developing academic integrity and our holistic approach. So we structured this into 2 courses. So one designed specifically for staff and one designed specifically for students, each tailored to their individual needs, but sharing similar messages about the importance and effective approaches to academic integrity. So the staff-facing side that you can see on the screen is structured into 5 modules, and it really looks at how various staff roles can present a unified approach to academic integrity. It looks at AI, it looks at how it's relevant to differing roles, and it offers practical ideas for promoting integrity in their specific work context. Also looks at how you can recognise and respond to breaches, and how to approach assessment design, including group work, which is something we were specifically requested to include. And technology is a theme that's interwoven throughout all of the modules. And then on the student-facing side, we've separated that and structured that into 5 modules again. The first 3 modules illustrate the key principles and the behaviours around academic integrity, and they are designed to help students incorporate best practices into their work. So looking at challenges like how you cope with pressure, how you prioritize, for example, how to effectively work with others and follow integrity practices, looking at selecting and using sources, for example. Modules 4 and 5 explore more complex scenarios. So we've got a tiered approach here, and they might look at issues such as taking on larger pieces of work and the practical things that you might need to think about there. So we thought it might be interesting to share a little bit about the process we went through for the learning design to show you how we developed that and the range of assets and approaches we've actually used in the online modules. It was useful to spend a bit of time brainstorming almost how we can support learning in a way that is really engaging and relevant. So looking at what are the areas of resistance for engagement that we might need to overcome, and what are the preconceptions that we might find on both the staff and the student side. So for example, can we challenge the preconception that students might have that it's relatively normal to use a contract cheating site because, you know, a lot of people do it. Can we look at incorporating into the training views of students that would be affected, for example, and what their peers are going to think if they find out that a student in their class was cheating. Looking at, say, the idea of the degree program actually being devalued, but put that in a way that is coming from a conversation with a peer. What tension points are there in this theme of academic integrity, and how could we make use of those? So, for example, when you use text matching software and you get results from those, yes, we can give guidance to staff on how to interpret those results, and it's not always as you might initially think when you look at those results. It doesn't necessarily mean there's plagiarism, but we could also use it as an educational approach with students. So it's really looking at how we can exploit these tension points and incorporate them into a really interesting learning design and a really interesting set of modules. So these are some of the things we were thinking about when we were looking at the personas of different staff and students that might be thinking about academic integrity. And I'm sure some of these will be relevant to things you might have heard said. So, you know, I'm not in a teaching role, so this doesn't apply to me. There's not much I can actually do. Or on a student perspective, oh, plagiarism is just about referencing, academic misconduct is just about referencing, and actually what could we do to challenge that and to show it's actually about a broader set of values and behaviours. What pressures are students going to be facing, and how can we be mindful of that, and how can we show examples that will be relevant of situations they might be experiencing. So perhaps the pressure of being the first in the family that's going to university, or the pressure of also managing a job as well as your study, or the pressures of being a parent when you're at university. And so with all that in mind, we came up with a vision for what we wanted each of the staff and the student programs to embody, and that's ultimately what we wanted to achieve. So we wanted the staff one to be you know, really evidence-based, really pulling in multi-stakeholder responsibilities and perspectives. And we really wanted the student one to provide support to students and to look at the integrity and the wider values and behaviours. And we decided to do this through the learning design approach that you can see outlined on the screen in front of you. And this is really a pedagogical framework that we put together for every module. So there's a consistent learner journey as they work through each of the modules. We thought an engaging way would be to start with, say, a challenge or a reflection, something personal that would get the student or the staff member actively thinking about the situation. So one of the ways we did this is through looking at polls, and it's a way for students to track their response to a question, perhaps around concerns or pressures, and then see the results of the wider peer community that actually other students might have similar concerns or might also be feeling quite stressed and worrying about what to do. And the polls can be quite an effective way of doing that. And I'll show that in a little bit of a demonstration later on. So moving on to the input section, this is the section of the module where we're basically trying to convey information. It could be key concepts over to the student and the staff member. And again, there's a way of doing this in an engaging style. So rather than just flat text, we try and give a bit of variety to this. So we use videos of students and staff members talking about their experiences. We use animations, infographics, and we also are able to signpost out to resources at the wider institution through elements that we call pods, which I'll show in the demo. Moving on, we have a lot of activities and scenarios throughout the programme. These can be kind of mini scenarios just for students and staff members to firstly test their understanding, but also role play and sort of practice scenarios. You know, where are the temptations? Where is the moment that they could step in and kind of intervene in a situation? And then finally, each application ends, each module, sorry, ends with an application. And this is a slightly longer scenario or set of scenarios that explore a situation, and they tend to pull in learning outcomes from across the module. So what I'd like to do now is just demo a couple of the modules for you. so that you can see how this looks in sort of real life and how that theory turned into practice. So hopefully you can see one of our student modules on the screen before you. So this is actually module 4 in the student programme. So at this point, students will have gained, some initial understanding of academic integrity behaviours and best practices. And now they're coming on to look at more challenging situations or longer pieces of work. So you can see this is our landing screen, and you can see that it lists the learning outcomes that the student should achieve by the end of the module. And we also have a tab here that explains how to use the module and just sets the scene for working through the learning. So I'm going to just move us on to a couple of screens and show those to you so that you can see the variety and the approach that we've used in the module. This first screen is really looking at students' confidence levels and how they felt about challenges they've already faced in their academic journey so far. So, as I mentioned, videos are one of the ways that we try and convey concepts and peer perspectives to students. And you can see here we're starting with a video as an engaging introduction to the area, and this will feature a range of students talking about the different challenges that they've faced during their studies. And then we take it down to a following activity that's really asking the student to think about their own situation. So there's an element of personalisation here. So at your stage in your academic journey, how confident are you in your own understanding of academic integrity principles? And this is one of the polls I mentioned earlier. So if I click, okay, I'm feeling fairly confident about my understanding of academic integrity principles, I view the results, I can actually see that a good chunk of the community is feeling relatively confident. And if I click feedback here, I can get a reminder of what the definition of academic integrity is. So moving on to the next screen, I've been asked about my confidence. How would I assess myself? And then I'll move on to a reminder here on the common breaches of academic integrity and how they are defined. So bearing in mind that the student will already have covered this in a previous module earlier on in the programme, and this is a bit of a refresher to see what they have remembered. So if I say, I'll select contract cheating, and I'm going to say it's commissioning somebody else to complete an assignment or task for me, then you can see I've matched that correctly. If I was to select fabrication and I'll pick it's pretending to be another person in an assessment, you can see that's wrong, and I get the chance to try again. And I can work through that activity until I've matched and answered all of the areas correctly. I also wanted to point out the useful advice pod that we have in the right of the screen here. And these are just additional points of information that a student can click on. They're where we suggest that institutions can add their own information about their own support services. So if you wanted to direct a student to a particular part of student services or your library or a particular staff member in a learning centre who can provide support, then that's where you could do that. Or you could potentially add some information about external links for where students could get some study skills support. So moving on to the next screen, you can see here we've got another poll, which is really asking me to think about the pressures that I'm feeling, that I've faced throughout my university experience so far. And this is one of the examples that I was mentioning, where it's quite nice to have a user consider their own situation, think about their own worries and concerns, and then actually see collectively that actually a lot of people are feeling similar things, and everyone is facing challenges, or you're not alone in feeling pressure. These responses are anonymous, and they're pulled from the overall users that are using the program, so they can't be linked back to individual users. And moving down, once I've identified what my pressures are, I can think about what challenges might come from those, and think about what I could do now to start addressing those. So if I was to select, for example, I felt referencing for me is an academic integrity challenge, I can add that in. I also think maybe time management has led me down some tempting paths when it comes to considering whether I use a contract cheating site, or whether I could look at someone else's essay and reuse that. So those are my two challenges. And then if I click next, I can actually take the time to think about, okay, what sources of information and support are available to me, and where can I take ownership for going to get some help. So, for example, I might, for the referencing, I might go and speak to the librarian or a learning advisor. For the time management, I might actually just speak to a friend and see how they've gone and see how they've approached it. But I also might go and speak to the Learning Support Centre, and again, the library, and see what support they can give me. So this is really asking the student to think about their own situation and what they would do. And then finally, I just want to show you an example of a scenario that we have in the student module. As I said, each module ends with a scenario or an application where you're given a situation and you have to work out perhaps if there is a breach of integrity, or what are the next steps you might take, or how might you advise a friend to ensure that they're not about to make any integrity mistakes. So here I've got a situation with Tony, who is working on a group assignment. He's been through a traumatic experience on a nursing ward, and he wants to share anonymized details. Is it acceptable? So yes, I'm going to say it is, and that's fine. And then I get another scenario, and you can see what I've selected there is wrong, and it's really important that the feedback is given so that you understand why you've made a wrong choice there, and you can sort of learn from that. One other thing I just wanted to show you on the student side was the animations, or an example of an animation that we use in the program. So we try to be quite creative with this. So this is an example from module 5. So it's the final module in the program. So it's really a scenario that's pulling together a lot of different experiences that you could have on a long-term piece of work. And so we did it in the style of a kind of retro computer game, and I'll just show you a little bit of this so you can get a feel for the flavour. So the idea with that is that it is a bit of a platform game style, and the characters in there will go through different challenges on that journey of completing a big piece of work, and it's just a sort of a light-hearted and engaging way of talking through those challenges before we move on to some different activities. I'd like to jump now to the staff side of the programme and just show you a quick couple of examples from the programme there, so you can see how we approach that. So this is the first module from the staff side, and again this is an animation, and I'm just going to show you a flavour of this so that you can see how we have brought in the different staff roles across the university and tried to bring in those different perspectives. So this animation is really to start explaining what academic integrity is. So you can see the students here, and you can see how it would be affected. And the idea here is that these would be devalued if others do. And then the animation moves through, looking at it from various different perspectives, so employers and lecturers, for example, and what their views are on academic integrity. So you can start to see the wider values and behaviours and ramifications. So if I move on to the next screen, again, we've used videos quite a lot in this programme so that you can see your peers talking about what academic integrity means to them and what their challenges have been. And if I just click on this transcript here, I'll move us back up slightly, but you can see that we've included a variety of different roles in these videos. So we've got a lecturer and researcher there in public administration and political science. We've got an academic integrity manager speaking, an academic developer, a professor of public administration, and that theme continues throughout the programme. We've tried to use lots of different voices and different perspectives in there so that the wide range of challenges is featured. And you might recognise this activity here with the terms and definitions from the student module, and we've included it here in the staff module because actually we think it's really important that both staff and students are working from the same different definitions and understanding of what academic integrity or what breaches of integrity are. And then if I move to the next screen, you can see that we've taken quite a scenario based approach to this. So we're looking at little mini situations here, and the user gets to explore what they might do as a staff member with this particular challenge that a student is facing. And we've given the option of being able to select different roles. So you can see how that would play out and what you can do to cultivate academic integrity at your institution. So you would work through that and you get some feedback on it, and you can go back to the start and you can pick a different role and work through the scenario again. Some of these scenarios are introductory and have a look at some basic concepts, and then other scenarios in the programme are a little bit more complex and take on some perhaps more nuanced challenges in there. So here, for example, in this screen, you're looking at the different ways that a student could face academic integrity challenges. So you're looking at Jana, who's a business student. She's missed a few weeks of lectures, and here are the different ways that she might be faced with challenges. And once you've had a look at that, we come down to an activity here, which is looking at how different staff members can help to promote academic integrity, even if at first glance you thought your role might not have any direct link to academic integrity. And so I can work through these scenarios, check my answer, get some feedback, and then move on again. And unfortunately, I have scored 0 so far. So I hope that's given you a little bit of flavour of the modules and some of the approaches that we've taken with the staff and the student content. And if we just move back to the presentation, I can talk you through some of the other resources, supporting resources that we have. So you can actually, I'm sorry, I will just sum up my learning design points there. So I think if you're looking at creating online training or online learning in this area, or you're looking to assess online resources, I would say the factors that exemplify good learning design, in my opinion, would be something that focuses on user challenges and motivations. We spoke about, you know, what preconceptions could we exploit, what tension points could we look at, and could we bring out in the learning content. And I think really focusing on your user motivations is really key, and thinking about how those modules and online courses will be used and when they'll be used. Is it sort of little and often? Is it something that will take pre-enrollment or pre-coming on campus? That affects how you would shape your journey and shape your framework as you work through the modules, and it's really important to be consistent with that. I think as well, use a variety of approaches. I think that's important in evaluating a good piece of online learning, using a variety of approaches to convey the information and to make associations, but making sure it's relevant. You want to have a variety of approaches that reflect on the realistic challenges that your user would be facing. Provide opportunities for reflection. So a lot of those activities that we looked at were the polls, or they were activities where students and staff got to think about what their next steps would be. Look at how you can use Pure Voice to assist with that. And then give plenty of opportunities for practice and feedback. So we're moving on more to thinking about how you might use the programme. And with academic integrity, you can use it in one of two ways. So the programme can either be embedded into your own VLE, or it can be accessed via the Epigeum dedicated online platform. So users have a lot of flexibility in terms of how they use it. It can be self-paced. Institutions have a lot of flexibility in how they want to roll it out. And we do support a blended learning approach. So we have an instructor manual that we provide with the programme that will give you some activities and ideas for how to facilitate blended learning sessions to build on some of the activities and concepts in the modules. So, for example, we have instructor manual for the staff side and for the student side. And you can see here an example of an activity. And what we've done here is we've actually used some additional video footage with students talking about their challenges. We've made that available to institutions so that they can then facilitate an activity that's really looking to build on some of those concepts that the students talk about, and to start and moderate a discussion in the institution's online discussion board. So that's one of the examples where we can provide additional supporting resources to really get into any issues that you want to explore in a little bit more detail. So at this point, I think I'll hand back to John, and he'll be able to talk you through more of our implementation approaches.
Great, thank you very much, Laura, for that. And indeed, as Laura alludes to there, and as actually I mentioned right at the beginning of today's session, we do have a dedicated implementation team that provides ongoing support to all partnering institutions. So here I'll just highlight a small selection of some of the things that we can help you with, and then maybe give you some more concrete examples of a couple of different approaches to implementation in a couple of slides' time. So, as Laura mentioned just a few moments ago, actually, there are two program delivery options. So you can either upload the content to your virtual learning environment or learning management system, such as Blackboard, Moodle, or Canvas, for example, or you can use our dedicated online platform. Now, each of those options has its own advantages and disadvantages, and there are questions around what can or how you might choose to customize elements. Laura showed you some of those pods which can be customized. And in any case, in the implementation team, we'll work with you and help you to take a decision based on whatever is going to work best for your particular institution and your context. Now, if you do choose to use our platform that Laura was doing the demo on a moment ago, then we'll also be able to help you to use all of the reporting tools that we offer. Those allow you to track usage and engagement with the program. And speaking of engagement, we also provide a comprehensive asset pack that contains a range of customizable promotional materials, more of which in a moment. I'll just show you a quick screenshot featuring some of those. And we're also happy to attend any promotional activities or key stakeholder meetings at your institution on request as well, if that's going to be useful. We love to share advice, tips, and best practice from other partner institutions using our programs. So there's a couple of ways that we often do that. For example, we have an ever-expanding bank of case studies that you can refer to at any time. And we're also always keen to organise community of practice events in order to really facilitate the sharing of ideas about approaches that have been proven to work well. And finally, we also have a dedicated technical support team that will help ensure that any technical issues experienced by end users are solved quickly and efficiently. So just coming back briefly to the promotional tools we offer in that asset pack, here you can just see a few examples of those tools, and they include things like introductory presentations, suggested social media text, videos, digital flyers, adverts, and even GIFs. I think there's a couple of GIFs moving around there in the bottom corners. I thought I'd also just talk a little bit about a few examples of different approaches that some of our partner institutions have taken when implementing our programs as a whole. Now, obviously, not all of these approaches will necessarily work at all institutions, and you'd really need to tailor your strategy to your particular target audience and your overall institutional aims, of course. However, at the very least, I hope that these ideas may provide you with some food for thought. So firstly, some institutions run our programs centrally, whereas others devolve certain aspects out to individual faculties or schools. Now, devolved responsibilities have included things like which particular courses or modules may be mandated and for whom, depending on the specific faculty needs, or potentially a particular faculty or school having responsibility for tracking the completion of those courses and for reporting on that. Now, as Laura's already mentioned, it is worth noting that academic integrity has been designed as a holistic institution-wide program that can help you drive a wider cultural change. So having buy-in from the top and rolling it out to all users across all faculties could be more effective if that's your institution's main objectives. Having said that, though, the program is designed to be flexible. We've seen that there are staff and student-facing modules. So perhaps your institution may want to focus on rolling out either the staff or student-facing content only, at least initially. So there's different approaches in that regard. Now, in that point, I already mentioned the tricky word mandate. This is always, or often at least, a difficult line to walk. Do you wish to mandate content? If so, which modules do you mandate and for whom? What are the consequences of that approach? Obviously, mandating content will drive the usage and even encourage users to engage with non-mandated or optional content too. But how do you enforce this, and what are the consequences of non-completion? So I don't necessarily have any answers for you, I'm afraid, but these are things to think about. And in fact, there are seldom any easy answers for mandating content. But here's just one example of what I know one institution is attempting to do, more with regards to the staff-facing modules. They're currently actually working with their HR department to see whether they can require all new teaching staff to complete the staff-facing modules as a standard part of their induction and probationary process. So, food for thought. Perhaps completing modules as part of professional development objectives or even as a requirement for promotion to more senior roles could work for your institution. Now, using modules at the appropriate stage is something that various institutions have also considered, especially for the student-facing content. Now, Laura mentioned the tiered approach to the 5 student-facing modules. For example, the first 3 of those modules could be more relevant earlier on in an undergraduate's academic journey, whilst perhaps the final 2 modules, which deal with more complex scenarios, as you may recall, could be introduced a bit later down the line once the students have more experience in higher education. There are also technical solutions to this that you could consider, things such as adaptive release, where a particular module only becomes available after completion of another, or only becomes available on a specific date, for example. Now, we sometimes find that awareness is a barrier to engagement with the resources. So the most successful implementations have been at institutions that plan, for example, launch events for their target audience or audiences, and that also have ongoing communications plans. A number of institutions have used the previously referenced asset pack materials to save them some time and to promote the program perhaps during Freshers' Weeks or in their regular mail outs, newsletters, bulletins, tweets, Facebook posts, VLE announcements, or whatever communication channel they choose to use. So all of that can help to ensure that the materials continue to be used over a sustained period of time. Laura already spoke about the blended learning opportunities that the program offers, and experience has shown us actually that effective outcomes can be achieved when this approach is used. This may not always be possible for a variety of reasons. However, those instructor manual activities, which contain, for example, suggested tutor-led or face-to-face activities or online-only activities, can be adapted to suit your own needs where you feel that it's going to work. So in summary, I hope that gives you just a few ideas of different approaches that some of our existing partners have used to good effect. And in any case, rest assured that in the implementation team, we'll work closely with you to help you plan and execute a successful approach that works for your particular context. So finally, with regards to next steps, if you have liked what you've seen in today's session and you're interested in finding out a little bit more, particularly with regards to the subscription options and the pricing of the Academic Integrity Programme, please do feel to get in touch with our Director of Academic Partnerships, Alan Stafford, whose contact details you can see on the screen. Alan will also be happy to set you up with a free trial to the programme if you'd like to dip into it and have a little look around for yourselves. Probably the best way is by email, and you can see Alan's email is alan.stafford@oup.com. There's also plenty more information about academic integrity and our other programs available on our website, which is www.epigeum.com. So we hope that this session has been of interest to you, and thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.